Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome on back to the Fantasy Football Pizzeria podcast. My name is Zach Sucardi. I am with my co-host, John Marler. You can find me on Twitter at FFPizzaman, on Instagram at Fantasy Football Pizzeria, and John can be found everywhere at Life Never Lost. Yeah. Today, we're going to go through just a quick agenda here. We're going to just break down some news, talk the pepperoni pineapple of the week, go over some sit, start, and pickups, talk a little bit about more of the sit starts. We're going to give our pizza review, player comparison. We'll go over the 5 offensive leaders of yardage each week. It's always an interesting list. And then we'll go over the song of the week and then our closing quote here. And I will be playing some hand drums there at the end. So pretty excited about that.
How you doing, Zach? How
Doing
you
all
feeling?
right, man. Yeah, all right.
How you
man.
feeling it from a football perspective as well as a personal perspective?
Football, good, man. This is the season is well underway, and there's a lot of data that we can grab from for this season, and bye weeks are going to be happening, so lots of movement. Lots of guys dropping guys maybe because of bye weeks.
Yep.
Lots of things like that.
Our dynasty team's doing well. Won another week.
Yeah. We had some really good plays on our team, which we on this dynasty team we sold a lot of picks, like a shit ton. So like we don't have any picks till like 2021, but we got a whole shit load of good players. So the team is named Extra Sauce. So just to share that with y'all. Personally, I'm doing all right, man. Happy to be here. I definitely am a person who needs routine, I think, to be at ease almost. So that I've been doing this on the weekly feels good. So it really does help, like, just my brain sort things out. And, it's, so I'm all, happy to be here, man, just chilling. Ate some pizza today, so life's good, man.
Yeah, man. We're pretty blessed to be able to eat pizza as often as we do.
Yeah, dude, 100%, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing all right, man. I think I become more self-aware with how I react to certain things. And so it's funny. I could have like family dynamics that make me feel heavy in my heart, but also like watching The Joker made me feel heavy in my heart and made me question both me as an individual's role in society as well as the larger population and what can happen if people are neglected too long.
Yeah, man. I think it's great when movies can kind of get that kind of reaction out of you, where they kind of leave you thinking things like that. I've not seen it yet, but from what we talked about earlier and, what you're sharing now, I definitely dig that, man, when you can have that kind of takeaway, other than just the artistic side of it, it kind of hits you somewhere else.
Yeah, it didn't make me feel good, but the more I thought about it, the more I enjoyed it.
Cool, man.
Afterwards.
Cool. Yeah, man. I think there's those sort of experiences, but that's cool, dude.
Cool, man. Well, being that it's Wednesday, I hear in a lot of other podcasts and stuff that it's oftentimes, at least especially for the Steelers podcasts I listen to, it's often a Veterans Day of rest where a lot of players do not practice. So it can be a little bit misleading. But with that said, looking at the news, there's a few interesting players that stand out to me, one of which is David Johnson did not practice today. Seems like he's been pushing through some injuries so far this season. Do you think he's going to play this week?
I think he will, yeah. I'm confident in it. I mean, he was able to finish the game. Chase Edmonds came in, and he performed great. He's a great backup. But yeah, I think he will. Honestly, something I learned probably a couple of years ago is Wednesday practices ain't shit. Guys don't practice on Wednesdays. It doesn't mean a fucking thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't, even if they, played the whole game on Sunday, any of that shit.
Or even if they're like, I know like Roethlisberger, obviously before he got injured, in previous seasons would just basically not practice every Wednesday. He would just chill with his family or something.
It's like dress down day if you work in like a place where you have to wear,
bear suits.
Yeah, a bear suit or any suit really. So, but yeah, no, that doesn't really ever concern me. Although, as it goes, on through the week, you want to see how what his practice schedule looks like and his participation within that. So, but Wednesdays, it's all good.
Right. And Chase Edmonds, I'm not sure if a lot of people know about him. Do you think? Do you think a lot of people know about him, and is he worth picking up?
Yeah, I don't think that many people know about him in the fantasy community. Yes, because he's been a great backup. I mean, he's always performed when he's been on the field. As far as backups go and handcuffs and things like that, and most definitely, if anything happened to David Johnson where he missed time, Chase Edmonds would just fit right into it, into that role. He'd be an RB1 easy.
Cool, man. Well, looking at another pretty familiar name, I feel like this guy's the king of playing through injuries, and that's Julio Jones. He also did not practice today and has a hip injury that he's working through. I mean, I have no evidence to support this, but I feel like he's just going to play through it.
Yeah. I don't think it's a big deal. I mean, again, it's always these things that you want to monitor. Fantasy football definitely makes you have to visit the same sites or go check out the same headlines. Keep on with your player. That way, if you need to switch him out, you need to put him in the IR, whatever. But on Wednesday, stuff like this with Julio Jones with his hip, I wouldn't be too concerned.
Cool. This is one of your favorite dudes, Brandon Cooks, still in concussion protocol. Concussions can be tricky. Sometimes guys are back after a week or two, and then other times it can last longer. How are you feeling about him playing this week?
It's still up in the air. You're right when it comes to those concussions, and I think it happened at the end of the game too. So, or at least towards the end of it. So definitely something to monitor. Gerald Everett had a pretty darn good game last week, and from that also could have to do a little bit with Robert Woods. He had a just pretty mediocre game, but. Yeah, he's someone I'm going to keep an eye on. We have him on our dynasty league that we're 4-1 in. Yeah, hell yeah. So we have to keep an eye on. I think I have him in the flex spot right now, just to swap him out for.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah, just in case. I mean, that may be another tip for some folks who aren't as versed, but always keep your if there's someone who's injured, keep him in your flex. That way, if he doesn't play, your options at replacing him are far greater than if you had him as your RB, as your tight end, as your wide receiver. And then, of course, keep an eye on when they're actually playing.
Yeah, exactly. Because if they're playing on Thursday, then you don't want them in your flex.
Yeah.
That way you have some flexibility with choosing another player. So as a general rule, and just for the record, Brandon Cooks is not playing this Thursday, so you don't have to worry about that. But generally speaking, that's a good strategy. Last person here with some news that I think is good is Carlos Hyde, running back for the Houston Texans. Did fully practice today. He was dealing with a shoulder and thigh injury, so that's good. Seems like a lot of people are hyping up the matchup against the Chiefs and him being a good start. So that is good news for him. So I would expect him to play.
Yeah, I like that. I always love those revenge games, even if it's he played for them for the preseason. It's still that whole like, hey, you had passed up on me, you had traded me. What's up? It's not like deep or nothing, but still, it'll be interesting. And he's someone that I would look to start for sure.
Awesome, dude. Well, let's go into our pepperoni awesome player of the week. Who is your pepperoni of the week, Zach?
Yeah. So if you guys didn't understand that definition, it's pretty much the pepperoni is the best topping on pizza. So we equate that with the best player of the week or the most positive outcome of the week. For me, it's Will Fuller. He was 14 for 20, 217 yards and 3 fucking touchdowns. Dude. It's like 50-something fucking points. And really, I was excited because, obviously it's a shit ton of points, but I picked him off waivers. He was someone that was dropped in this one league, and I had Antonio Brown in that league. I had to drop him, and had some injuries like to Devontae Adams, so I had to roll with Will Fuller, and
that's awesome. Dude.
Yeah, and honestly, that's why he's my pepperoni. Just like that, I was able to get him off waivers, because especially early in the season, guys get very, they just have to drop players or they get emotional because they didn't perform up to this point. So I was very, very pleased to, have him do so well. So he was easily my pepperoni of the week.
That's awesome, dude. It's great when a wide receiver gets over that 200-yard thing.
Oh my
it's just
God,
it's just a
dude.
monster game. So
Isn't it great when you see like 200 fucking yards plus and then multiple fucking touchdowns? You're like, ah, God. It's like, even one of those is fucking awesome, dude.
right, you'd be
Fucking
happy
A,
with any
man.
of those, let alone all
Tore
of
it
them.
up. I mean, especially a guy you got off waivers. Fucking A, man. He's not someone you typically will see on the waiver wire, but in some leagues, in some home leagues, motherfuckers be making those kind of decisions. So it definitely benefited your boy here.
Yeah, man. And the Texans just had a good week with high-scoring games. So that's
Yeah,
good to see.
yeah. Hell yeah.
Cool, man. Well, my pepperoni player of the week is Aaron Jones. We had in previous podcasts, we had discussed some concerns that I had with him because he was getting like 15 yards a game, but he's getting those touchdowns. And you, in your wise words, Zach, said, you got to play him. And I'm glad I played him this week. He got 45.7 fantasy points, 107 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 75 receiving yards. So it was great. And especially since it came against the Cowboys.
Hell yeah. And honestly, man, I don't own him at all this year, but I'm happy to see that kind of performance. I'm happy to see that, on the team that he's on the role that he plays, where his talent level is, like, this makes sense. I mean, this is huge, but it makes sense. And I'm glad when, especially in the running back world, when things kind of make sense as far as like, where they're at and all the things that I just mentioned. So even though I didn't have him, I was happy to see that.
Awesome, dude. And I won't spend a lot of time on it, but just felt I wanted to mention because I had this player in first, but an honorary mention will be Matt Breida, running back for the 49ers. They got Tevin Coleman had come back, and, Mostert has done a really good job, and even Wilson on the 49ers. Seems like all the running backs seem to do pretty well. And despite Tevin Coleman coming back, Breida still had 114 rush yards, a rushing touchdown, receiving touchdown, and a handful of 15 yards of receiving yards. But that was also a great performance.
Yeah, dude, I actually I was going up against him and Debo Samuel on a Monday night. And I had like a 27-point lead, and I had Jarvis Landry going. And thank God for Jarvis Landry doing his thing.
He did his thing.
I mean, it wasn't great, but I think it was like 4 for 75 or
yeah, it was enough.
It was enough, especially in a PPR league. So it was enough cushion where I was able to stay undefeated in this league by like 5 or 6 fucking points because the person I was playing against had Matt Breida. I have Tevin Coleman. I don't have any shares of Matt Breida, but I don't know, man. Maybe I just love fantasy football, or I just can't root like against any of these guys. But I'm definitely happy to see him do so well. I'm hoping it's a sign of what's to come with especially with Tevin Coleman. I have him in a lot of leagues, a couple dynasty leagues too. So happy to see that team is moving the ball so well on the ground. Defense is showing up. Jimmy G's doing his thing, and the wide receivers are, other than George Kittle trying to figure themselves out. So
right.
Good call on that runner up.
Well, it's nice that you wish nothing bad on any of these people. I have no problems wishing bad things on some players. We talked about Burfict last week. It was official, or he had tried to push back on his suspension, and it was upheld. So I'm glad for that.
Yeah, fuck that dude. Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to say I love everybody, but like, when people be acting like he's been, yeah, fuck that dude.
Cool, man. Well, who is your pineapple crappy player of the week?
So again, just to break it on down, pineapple we equate with it doesn't belong. It's no good. If you have it on pizza, it ruins it. What the fuck? It's a fruit. Anyway, so just so you know, pineapple
Isn't tomato
bad.
a fruit?
Sure.
Which is the base of pizza sauce?
Yeah, God bless tomatoes. Okay. Shit, man.
So it's not like a...
Shout out ketchup.
Oh, God. Ketchup pizza sounds horrible.
Oh, yeah, ketchup pizza. Sure, I ain't going there, but I mean, just, the whole tomato piece. Right. So my pineapple of the week is Sammy Watkins. And yeah, I mean, he was 0 for fucking 0 with 0 catches. It was 0 everything. I didn't even think he put his fucking his helmet on all the way. So he was. And I usually don't try to dog on the guys who get injured because he was coming into it was later in the week where he had, I think, a hammy or something, or I honestly don't know. It was a lower body, I believe, injury, and he wound up playing But I've had this, and we've all had this happen before, where your guy plays, but he doesn't do shit, or he really doesn't play, or he plays at play,
Right.
or he's like super like a decoy, and that's it. In this case, he didn't do any of that shit. He just didn't. He just. I mean, I think maybe he played one series.
Painful.
And it just sucks because I guess he's more also of my pineapple is that I'm chasing that week one. He had like a billion points.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's been like in PPR, like, he's been all right, you know, but on that team, it just doesn't seem to be going his way. But I mean, if
That's
you're
with
playing,
Tyreek Hill not there. Maybe he'll do better once Tyreek Hill comes back.
who knows? You know, though, I'm gonna keep playing him because it'll be in a flex spot. I mean, again, he's on such a great offense. As long as he's, as long as he's healthy. Well, yeah, as long as he's healthy and, you know, I don't have someone else that's much better and much healthier. Shout out DJ Chark. I don't know how I'm 5-0 in this league where I haven't played him once, but you know, that'll change this week.
Yeah, he's getting like touchdowns every week, right?
Yeah. I mean, I know it's a tougher matchup this week, but fuck it, man. I have like Sterling Shepard. He's out.
Let's do it, dude.
Yeah, so rock and roll.
Minshew will guide you the way.
Yeah. His whole get up and mustache and all that shit. Yeah.
Bandana.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, I have a special guest for my pineapple of the week.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Special guest.
A reoccurring guest. at this point.
Reoccurring.
Yeah.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, multiple ways. Last week he was the pepperoni of the week, and before that he was the pineapple of the week, and that is Mike Evans.
Oh,
this guy,
man.
dude, he goes from having 41 points last week to getting 0 points this week, and you know the Buccaneers they had a decent amount of offense in that game and scoring, and he still managed to get 0 points on 3 targets. Not that that's a ton of targets, but just such a crazy drop off, dude. It's like, and of course, you know, your pineapple of the week was Sammy Watkins. On my undefeated team, I have both Mike Evans and Sammy Watkins, and both of them gave me 0s, which did not help me. And so that undefeated team is now had its first loss.
Oh, dude. That's when you get double 0s, my God. Especially from fucking, you know, a non-defense or kicker who fucking, you know, misses every damn thing. What do you think it is with them? Do you think, because, I mean, Chris Godwin, I think, is like the number one wide receiver. I'm pretty sure. And I mean, he's
definitely been more consistent.
Yeah. He had one okay game, but other than that, he's been representing. And I mean, they've been even saying that about OJ Howard. He hasn't done shit either.
Yeah, I wasn't very high on OJ Howard this year, just because of last year. I'm not sure. To be honest, I'm not sure why people were so high on him. I mean, I played him a lot last year, and you know, it was like really hit or miss. So that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I know people were really into what they were projecting for OJ Howard this year. But yeah, dude, seeing Mike Evans. You know, and honestly, guys like Sammy Watkins, Mike Evans, obviously a buy low candidate. Anytime, I mean, this is probably obvious some shit, but anytime motherfuckers get 0 points, you may want to go buy them, you know, especially when they're as talented as Mike Evans and Sammy Watkins.
Cool, man. Well, we're going to get into our next segment with the sits and starts, and we're going to do it a little bit different. Every week we try to polish this podcast up a little bit.
Love it.
And so we're going to be using a reference for the NFL Fantasy website where they have some sits and starts. And so I'll kind of pick out the ones that kind of stand out to me as most interesting and get our takes on whether we agree or disagree with it.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Let's start with your prediction for the guy who's going to have the most passing yards. So we're going to start with quarterbacks first. And that is Matt Ryan of the who's he play for? The Bird team?
The Falcons.
Yeah, they're from ATL, A-Town. Stay up.
They're also the Pee Wee team of the Washington Township Falcons in Washington Township, New Jersey.
Oh, nice.
Shout out.
Anyway, they are playing the Arizona Cardinals this week. Cardinals.
I got to mention something.
Okay.
In that same town, the high school team is the Westwood Cardinals.
Really?
Yeah, and when I say the same town, the school is in Washington Township, but it's called Westwood High. But Westwood, New Jersey, and Washington Township are kind of like the same thing. Only really if you're from there and you want to get really specific, do you shout them out differently. But yeah, so I just had to interrupt and let you guys know.
No, it was really valid. So thanks for doing
Yeah,
that.
I mean logo versus logo, like the way my
Birds
brain
versus birds.
Yeah, birds and birds, which is funny because I'm not a really big bird guy. If you know me personally, you know I'm not really into birds.
Yeah.
I got nothing against them,
Not
but
a fan.
that's for another podcast, for another subject.
For the anti-bird podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
But yeah,
Anyway, how do you feel about him playing the Cardinals? Obviously, the Cardinals have had a tough season. They got their first win last week against the Bengals. Their defense has not been particularly good, but the Falcons have also struggled a lot offensively. What do you think about him playing this week? The NFL website has him as a start.
yeah, I like it. Honestly, I would agree. I would go along with it because, I mean, he's still in a high-powered offense, even though they don't seem to be winning games. You know, he's still probably. I mean, we have to get to it later, but he's probably still top 5 for passing yards. And I mean, with weapons like Julio, Calvin Ridley, even Austin Hooper. I think Austin fucking Hooper is the number 1 tight end.
Dude, he's been
points-wise.
tearing it up.
Yeah.
That has been a surprise to me. I thought he'd be all right, but especially given maybe it's because they are struggling a lot more offensively than most people realize. That Matt Ryan just got to dump it off to that tight end because he's blocking half the time, so he's more open. But whatever the reason, Hooper's been doing well, and it says here that the Cardinals have been giving up 116.1 passer rating and an average of more than 23 fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, so should be a pretty solid start. In that same game, we got Kyler Murray, the quarterback for the Cardinals. We have him in our Dynasty League. Also listed as a start. I mean, the Falcons, like we said, have been struggling offensively, but also defensively. Kyler Murray got another rushing touchdown last week. Do you feel good about him against the Falcons?
I do, yeah. Falcons' defense has sucked, man. They lost Keanu Neal, who's their safety. I think I forget the guy's name, but it's not too important. They lost someone else in their defensive backfield. But yeah, no, I would definitely play Kyler Murray against the Falcons. The Falcons have such a shitty defense, and I think this could be a high-scoring game. Believe it or not, just based on how desperate both teams are with their records, yeah, no, I would play both of those quarterbacks easy.
Awesome, man. Well, as in a really surprising move, this article also says you should start Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, I'm not sure if I can agree with that
That's
one.
deep,
but
yeah, that's deep.
Yeah, a deep take. But let's look at some of the sits they have. Baker Mayfield, he's just been sucking. I think a lot of people are dropping him.
When you get negative 2 points, when you get negative points from your quarterback, it definitely fucking hurts.
Yeah, and against the Seattle Seahawks, even though last week, as you predicted, the Rams and Seattle Seahawks game was pretty high scoring. But even with that, I don't feel great about Baker in general, but especially against the Seahawks.
No, definitely. I would sit him. Someone who in Dynasty I would hold on to him. I wouldn't try to sell him, obviously. I still think he all right, not bad. I should stop drinking soda.
Yeah, probably.
I just love it, man. It's part of my pizza. It's part of
Pizza
my
experience.
Yeah, it is. Like water, sure. Yeah. And if I guess if I drank beer, I would fuck with beer, but I don't. Anything else doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, I guess just the burps and everything.
Maybe you could brainwash yourself into thinking that water will cleanse your palate and make you enjoy the pizza more.
Yeah, water. Again, I drink like 3, maybe 4 drinks altogether. Diet Coke, water,
Diet Coke.
Diet Pepsi. No, I like iced tea or Arnie Palmies. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I should stop. I probably should do some more water. But yeah, Baker Mayfield. Yeah. No.
So the only kind of interesting sit here that I'm seeing on this article is Philip Rivers against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, being a Steelers fan, I've watched every game this year, and I gotta say, the defense has been quietly good. I know that they've had a tough season in terms of wins and losses, but especially compared to previous years, they've been doing pretty solid. So I can agree with potentially sitting Philip Rivers. Now, it depends on who else you got available to you. But what do you think about Philip Rivers against the Steelers?
I actually like it as a start. I would have him more in my start category just because just the offense. I don't know that the Steelers defense is gonna, shut him down. I think that with having Melvin Gordon another week, how Austin Eckler's been playing, even Mike Williams had a good game. He had a lot more targets. He's someone I would start, honestly. I mean, unless again you have another option that's way more obvious, like Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray, something like that.
Cool, man. Well, let's move over to the running backs here. We got Austin Eckler in that same game with the running back for the Chargers against the Steelers. They have him listed as a start. I think that he's been doing well, even with Melvin Gordon back in the lineup, and has been doing pretty well. So I would agree with that start. Would you?
I definitely would. And one thing I want to point out that is a good tip for all us fantasy players is keep note on players on other teams, on other fantasy teams that are just outperforming and just doing great, especially any guys who are in flex spots, or in Austin Eckler's case, since Melvin Gordon's been out, you would probably start him as your RB1. But keep an eye on, because Austin Eckler was someone I remember I never drafted until this year. I mean, obviously, it was an easier decision because of Melvin Gordon's holdout. But someone that I always would see just do so well, and he'd be like a flex spot because of where he was drafted. You had other options you were going to start over him in your RB spots. So someone that I'm excited to have this year, and that I kind of just, in previous seasons just, made a mental note. I thought I want to, keep an eye on this guy. Someone who I would like to eventually, draft. So, but yeah, definitely like him against Pittsburgh.
Awesome, man. Carlos Hyde, running back for the Houston Texans. He's been consistent, but no like amazing games that have blown you away. Chiefs defense here have been giving up the second most rushing yards and 5.3 yards per rush to opposing running backs. So they have him listed as a start here. I think if you have Carlos Hyde, you're probably most likely in a place where you're either playing him or not. It's not really a big toss-up. I guess it depends on who else you have. But let's do this. Let's compare him to another start they got. They got Kenyon Drake, one of our boys that we got on our Dynasty League, has definitely underperformed what we expected, but I think just the Dolphins in general have been having a really tough time against the Washington Redskins, who have also been having a really tough season. Would you play Carlos Hyde over Kenyon Drake, or vice versa?
I would play Carlos Hyde. And for me, it comes down to offense, much better team. They're playing in Kansas City. He's been doing his thing with Houston. It's as I mentioned earlier, it's a revenge game. He was with Kansas City in the preseason, so he's going to want to show them what's up. You just can't trust anyone on the Dolphins. But honestly, I would probably play Kenyon Drake if I was going to play anyone on the Dolphins, and especially in a PPR format. I mean, you just hope he gets traded or something. But this is going to be what they've been calling it, like the Tank Bowl.
Yeah.
The Redskins and then the Dolphins both shitty. They're both winless, and they're I think that maybe the Redskins have one win.
I think they do. Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter.
Their coach just got fired.
Yeah, the coach just got fired, and it'll be interesting to see. I think they're playing in Washington. But yeah, I would definitely go Carlos Hyde. But if I had Kenyon Drake, throw him in the flex. There are worse starts this week, especially with bye weeks.
Awesome, man. Well, an interesting sit that they have listed is Jordan Howard, who's done really well the past few weeks, getting multiple touchdowns. They're playing. He's running back for the Eagles, and they are playing the Minnesota Vikings, who have had a solid defense. I have their defense on one of my fantasy leagues, and have been pretty consistent in giving me good scores. But what do you think about Jordan Howard, another player that we have on our Dynasty League, against the Vikings?
It's a tough matchup. I mean, the Vikings past couple seasons have had a really tough defense, especially run defense. I could see why he's in this sit column. Again, I would, if you have him as a flex spot, he's still on the Eagles. I did see something this week where they're going to try to get him the ball a little more, all that coach speak and stuff. But at least it's like positive in his favor. He still has Miles Sanders to really compete with. But I would, of course, I'd start, guys over him. As far as my RB spots, he's not someone I would start unless I had multiple flexes.
Awesome, dude.
This week, especially with Minnesota.
Yeah. All right, let's switch over to and finish up with wide receivers here. You'd mentioned you have DJ Chark on your team. They have him listed as a start against New Orleans Saints. It feels like he's been getting a touchdown almost every week and probably a solid at least flex spot. What do you think about Chark this week?
Yeah, it's going to be a tougher matchup against New Orleans, but I would definitely play him. Got to keep playing this motherfucker. Play these dudes when they're hot. I mean, unless it's a really bad matchup, you have someone else that makes more sense, but you got to play these motherfuckers. I mean, I'm not doing as I say. I haven't played him yet in this one league that I have a shit ton of wide receivers, but they're all getting injured. So he's gonna do his thing this week, hopefully. So, and I'm really happy to see him perform so well. Even with Gardner Minshew, and that like deep connection.
Like emotional.
Emotional, yeah. They must have had like a bunk bed. Yeah, something in there.
Yeah, played Scrabble or something.
Trust fall, yeah, something there.
Cool. Well, you talked a little bit about Jarvis Landry doing just enough for you to get a win. He's the wide receiver for the Browns playing against Seattle Seahawks this week. They have him listed as a sit. What do you think about him against the Seahawks?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough matchup against the Seahawks. But Jarvis Landry, I would honestly keep on playing him as well. I'd like to think that the Browns have to get it together, whether they win or not. They have to put up a lot more offensive points. Way too many Eagles on that offense. Way too many. And they have a lot of talent. I don't know where the missing piece is. I just think their expectations were so fucking high that, I mean, they are shitty. They are playing shitty. They are playing like the Browns. So, it's almost like those uniforms are grotesque. Their play is even worse. Just real sloppy, real kind of careless. But I would still play Jarvis Landry, especially in a PPR setting.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's there's always that obviously a randomness to fantasy football, but I feel like the Eagles, the Seahawks are less likely to two bird teams.
So many birds, man.
So many
fucking
birds.
Vicious.
It should be a bird bowl.
Bird bowl, yeah.
But I feel like their defense is less likely to give up a big play, and Jarvis Landry is less likely to do a big play, so you might take a lot of short underneath passes, and Baker doesn't seem very capable of throwing the ball very far, so it could be where he, has a decent amount of receptions, so if you're in PPR or half PPR, even though, the official, experts at NFL.com are saying not to play him, I think he could still be a good play.
Me too, yeah. I think I like reading all different kinds of articles from certain sites and, getting perspective, but you got to go with your gut. At the end of the day, I hate that saying, but at the end of the day, you got to go with your gut.
Well, what did your gut tell you about the pizza of the week, Zach? It was a Freschetta frozen pizza that you brought by with the toppings pepperoni. And since it was frozen, we were not able to do our custom order of extra sauce and well done. But what did you evaluate this pizza as?
I really liked it. It was the Freschetta Rising Crust, to be specific for y'all out there. I thought the pepperoni, it was good. It was generously distributed.
Yeah.
It wasn't great. It didn't blow me away, but it was better probably than recent frozen pizza pepperoni.
Decent surface area coverage.
Yeah, exactly. Cheese was good. One thing that I noticed is that when we first opened it up before we made it, it looked like it had a ton of cheese, and I'm not a big cheese guy. I'm more sauce than cheese. But the cheese was good. It didn't really stick to the pizza.
It shrunk.
Yeah, it did. But you know what? It brings me to the sauce. Sauce was sweet, which was actually really nice. It's been a while since I've had any sweet kind of tasting sauce. I've had more of the spicy of the spicy blend. But the sauce, I thought, had really good ratio to the cheese, and it was really tasty. And I was pleasantly surprised because, as we said, we didn't. It's fucking frozen pizza. There's no extra sauce unless you just make pizza sauce and have it on the side, but then it's not really the same. Whatever, we can get into that later. But yeah, I was really pleased by the sauce, and the crust was fucking delicious. Very crunchy and crispy in some areas. Really good pizza crust flavor, and it was one of the better pizzas that we've had frozen, and the one I've never had. And just the way that, we had it, I'd say, just before crispy. And it just had such good flavor and just everything mixed together, and the sauce, it was very surprising to me, to be honest with you, as far as one that I've never had, and the way it turned out.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah, man. And my player comparison is Chase Edmonds, who is the running back for the Arizona Cardinals. He's the backup running back to David Johnson. The reason why I chose Chase Edmonds, I mean, maybe because the Cardinals are red and the sauce, the red, maybe there's a connection there. It kind of, I mean, since it was rising crust, and that's usually what I get when I get the DiGiorno pizzas, it kind of made me think of that. And being that Chase Edmonds is David Johnson's backup, but he's a well-capable backup, someone that we mentioned earlier, someone who I'm very pleased that I was able to get in my league that I have David Johnson in. I usually don't go handcuffs, especially this early, but he's such a dynamic player. And with David Johnson, he's been playing he's been playing great this year, David Johnson. Kind of surprisingly. I don't know why. He was someone that I got in the first round, but wasn't so excited about. But anyway, back to Chase Edmonds. Yeah, I really thought that this pizza was a great player comparison with
a great backup to have.
Yeah, it was. And, possibly something I would maybe choose over a DiGiorno pizza in the future.
Wow.
Yeah. And,
okay.
I mean, I don't know what David Johnson's contract looks like, but yeah, I know.
And if David Johnson costs more.
Exactly.
I don't know if the cost of the Freshetta was cheaper, but
I don't think it was, but I didn't pay attention to the cost. But yeah, that's a great point.
If it was, though.
If it was, and I was, I was tight on cash on my pizza funds, then I'd be like, yeah, know what I mean?
Awesome, dude. Well, I think I feel pretty similar to you. I do agree with the pepperoni. Again, it wasn't like super powerful flavor, but good amount, well distributed surface area around it. Cheese, again, I know that we have kind of different opinions on cheese. It felt like a little bit light on the cheese for me, but it still had a good flavor for it. Crust was also, again, similar. I think just a taste is a little thick for me, but I thought it was good flavor. And something I appreciated about it, we might have just been lucky because it can vary from pizza to pizza, but I thought it was cooked very consistently throughout. It wasn't like too crispy on one part and then too soft on another part. It was very evenly cooked, so I give them props for that. And my player comparison is Jarvis Landry.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
I think it worked well too, even with how he helped you out in your game. It was just enough for you to get the win.
It definitely was.
I think also this pizza, in terms of the frozen pizzas, I think I liked the DiGiorno a little bit more. Mm-hmm. So I would go with that. But if I needed to get this was a great option as well. So I put it right underneath the DiGiorno in terms of my pizza rankings.
I think that's awesome, man. Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of pizza fantasy football sense.
It does. It all works together.
Hell yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, let's talk about our game of the week. And this was great, I think, from your predictive standpoint. Again, in general, we kind of think of Seahawks defense equals lower scoring, but our game of the week was the Rams versus the Seahawks. And you had done some research last week before this game occurred and saw that when the Rams play the Seahawks, it tends to be more high scoring. And it turned out to be higher scoring and a really fun game to watch. The Rams lost by 1 point. Greg the Leg missed a field goal that would have given them the victory at the last second, and the Seahawks win 30-29. So it was fun from just a fan perspective. It was a Thursday night game, but it was also good from a fantasy perspective, I think in multiple ways. I had a lot of players between my different teams on here. I had Jared Goff on one team. I had Chris Carson. I had Will Dissly. I had Tyler Lockett. I had Cooper Kupp. So it was especially fun for me. What did you think of this game?
It was exciting, man. I mean, right away with those uniforms that Seattle had, those fucking Xbox ones that are like that super bright.
green.
Yeah,
Yeah,
super green. It actually works though. I can kind of dig it. And then something about Thursday nights, I always have sort of like this low expectation, but it was a very exciting game. I mean, honestly, man, like that touchdown to Tyler Lockett, which I have to say, Tyler Lockett's someone I was kind of dogging on. Mm-hmm. You know, I've had him in previous years, not someone I drafted. I found him on the waiver wire, and I was really surprised on how much how much people were like blowing him, coming into the season.
Yeah, people were really high on him.
Yeah, and I'm happy to say I was wrong. I mean, dude, that was a great game. I mean, he seems to be kind of which in that offense, especially with the wide receivers, it's a lot of big plays. But someone like Tyler Lockett, I mean, it was great, and I'm glad I was wrong. Another thing I kind of like about fantasy football is, you have your feelings on certain players you may avoid, but then they turn out to be something that's worth drafting, worth keeping an eye on, and it's just so fun to watch. Such a great catch. And yeah, I was really happy how well Chris Carson did. He even came away with that touchdown, which kind of scared me because he kind of bobbled that pass in the end zone and he finally caught it.
Yeah, it was he was trying his hardest to not catch that.
Yeah, way to give me like a mini heart attack.
Well, maybe because he was thinking about Tyler Lockett is waiting to have sex until he gets married, as did Russell Wilson.
Yeah, you were showing me that he was doing poetry
about
and
about wanting to have sex or something, but not.
And I almost can't take it seriously because I can't imagine he hasn't had sex, being such a famous person. But at the same time, if he is being serious, that's awesome. I think it's cool to be like open about that shit and to be rapping about it, and then him doing his poetry. Even if it's, not maybe the best quality, poetry.
It came from the heart.
Yeah, it came from the heart, and he's trying to do his thing. And if he's, talking about stuff like that, I can definitely say what's up to that.
Yeah. I waited until I got married as well. I'm not sure if I'd recommend it, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's such a big part of the relationship that it can be hard to wait for many reasons, but for me, it's such a big part of the relationship. That it's not something I can write a poem about, at least.
Could you write a poem about the top 5 passers and Patrick Mahomes still being at the top of the list?
I probably could. And let me just say real quick, for those who do know me, I do love poetry. I mean, fuck,
yeah.
we have that.
He writes it.
Yeah, I write a little modern haiku, which is pretty much just writing smaller poems that don't have to do the 5-7-5 syllables. Just kind of captures a quick moment. So I can get down with Tyler Lockett and his poetry and his virgin poetry. I think that's awesome, dude. But yeah, waiting and stuff. Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own deal. So
you think cool. Patrick Mahomes is a virgin?
Probably not. But again, not something I'm thinking about until someone writes poetry about it. And then here we are.
Yeah. Well, anyway, he's topping out our top 5 passers of the week with 1,831 yards. Shortly, not very far behind him, Matt Ryan, close to 200 yards less than him, who again is your pick for going to be the top passer at the end of the year. So things are looking good for him. Jared Goff, we talked a little bit about him as in our game of the week. He threw almost 400 yards this past week, rounding out number 3. Dak Prescott, forget that guy. He's number 4. And then Phillip Rivers rounding out the list at the bottom there. Then we got our top 5 rushers. Christian McCaffrey, dude, that guy's been tearing it up in like so many categories. We'll see hindsight and we'll see season long and how things turn out in the playoffs, but I can't help but think when I had that number 1 pick and I chose Saquon Barkley, if I had chosen Christian McCaffrey instead. But he's got the most rushing yards with 587.
He also has more rushing yards than the entirety of the New York Jets offense. I think 140 something more.
Yeah. And I think it's probably total yards.
Total yards, excuse me. Yes.
He has more total yards than the Dolphins do, and I think he also has more points than the Dolphins do.
Which I think is a great stat. I mean, damn. When you're pulling up team stats
One player.
as an individual player.
And it's not like the, Panthers are scoring 50 points a game either.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're doing that without having these ridiculous games on your team as a whole just shows how valuable he is to that team.
Yeah, and I got to say, he was on my squad that was playing against the Matt Breida owner. So without him, I definitely wouldn't have won that shit. He like a fucking 100,000 points. And yeah, he's an awesome player, and I'm happy to see that. I have him in a couple leagues, and it's funny anytime you see stats like that. And I'm not trying to dog on my Jets. They can kind of do it for themselves. I just present the facts there. But yeah, he's awesome.
Awesome, man. Number 2 is Dalvin Cook, not far behind him. I'm a big fan of his, Minnesota Vikings running back. Leonard Fournette has had some bounce back in terms of yardage.
Lenny Fowl.
He's number 3 there. Nick Chubb, despite the Browns sucking really bad last week and only scoring 3 points, he still managed to get 80-some rushing yards and is in number 4 overall for the season. And Marlon Mack rounding out at number 5 here. He's been pretty consistent as well. Receiving yards, we got a familiar face here. Michael Thomas is at number 1 here with 543. Impressive to see him still doing so well despite playing with Teddy Bridgewater and a backup quarterback, but you love Teddy.
Yeah, Teddy did great, and Michael Thomas was great this week as well. I had him in one league. I only have him in one league, but he had like 40-something fucking points.
And despite losing, Amari Cooper, wide receiver for the Cowboys, is in number 2 here, doing pretty well with 512 yards. Chris Godwin, we had talked about him. He's been really stepping up and doing better than Mike Evans, or at least more consistent. He may not have had – he's still had monster weeks, but definitely more reliable than Mike Evans has been so far. Cooper Kupp, I've been a big fan of his this year especially. Liked him a lot last year as well before he got injured at number 4. And maybe a surprising name here, DJ Chark at number 5 here, with rounding out with 485 yards. And we talked about him pretty consistently getting touchdowns, so it's cool to see him on the top 5.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't follow every week last week, and this is, again, part of what kind of makes this fun to check it out every week. But, I don't recall ever seeing DJ Chark on a top 5 receiving yards ever.
It's cool. I mean, after the season's over, if you break the season within, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, and you'd see how, who were the leaders within those weeks, it's pretty cool to see kind of where some of these names are showing up and, where they, if they're going to continue to.
Awesome, man. Well, that was our top 5 segment. Let's go ahead and switch over to the song of the week. Who and what is your song of the week, Zach?
So, I chose a song by Pearl Jam. I realized recently that they're a band that probably in my top 10, but I've never seen live. And I've seen, a shit ton of shows and concerts and all this kind of thing. But, and I chose the song I Davanita. It's a song on Vitalogy, which is their 3rd album. It's a all instrumental song. It's very hypnotic, almost tribal.
Yeah, some weird chants in it.
Yeah. They have kind of like a mantra chant thing going on in there. It's very overlooked, and just something it just, I don't know. I got to hand it to Pearl Jam. They're very diverse. I mean, I'm more of a fan of those first 4 albums, but very diverse, and that this is an instrumental song and still carries so much weight. Because, I mean, they have, I'm a big fan of their music and the vocals, lyrics, all this stuff. It complements each other, and with this being an instrumental song, it's just so, I don't know, I love listening to it. It sounds like a different band. And there's also parts of it that kind of sound like it's a Beatles song. The Help with My, Help with My Friends. Forgive me for not knowing this.
Get by with a little help from my friends.
There you go. And
Get high with a little help from my friends.
There you go. And, it was the theme song for the One D Year show back in the 80s and like early 90s.
Oh,
and there's this guitar part that in this song, this Pearl Jam song, I Davanita, it sounds very similar. And it makes me think more of the Wonder Years show than it does that Joe Cocker Beatles song.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it's a kind of cool connection to it. So that's why I chose that as my song of the week.
Awesome. Are they called Pearl Jam because they jam on Pearl drums?
That would make a lot of sense for sponsorship, but I believe they're called Pearl Jam because I think like one of their grandmothers was named Pearl.
Wow.
And I think it could be as simple as jam with fucking she made jam or some shit. I will say though that their original name was going to be Mookie Blaylock, and he was a basketball player from like the 80s and 90s. I think he played at that time for the Hawks, and they were going to use his name as their band name, but they eventually chose Pearl Jam.
Well, I think it's really lame to use your grandma in terms of connection to music. So, lame name. So my song of the week is Gone Wonder by the Vines, and I'm doing it because of in honor of my grandma's birthday, which is in a couple days.
Okay, yeah. All right. That's cool.
She passed away last year, and the song was released, I think, like the day after, and it really hit me hard. The song is starts off with a very kind of simple but driving acoustic guitar, and the lyrics and the melodies have like so many different like literal layers in terms of octaves and kind of going back and forth between singing the same melody over each other to kind of slightly transitioning towards the end and then merging back in. But aside from that, lyrically, it talks about kind of wonder, like as in like wonderful, or like kind of that mystery, or kind of like that spark in life kind of slowly disappearing and that going away. And when my grandma passed away, it definitely changed the dynamic of the family, and it felt appropriate for that time. And I'm happy to say that we've done a pretty good job adapting to her being gone, but at the same time definitely acknowledging it. So my grandma connection to this music is much better than Pearl Jam's.
Yeah, obviously, but that's real cool, man. I always dig that kind of connection. I was close with my grandmother, and she was really into Johnny Cash, and she it was something that we were able to kind of share together, and it's fucking awesome. Anytime you can share music with a family member, it's pretty cool. I mean, especially when they're older, you would think your styles or whatever would be so different, but
yeah, that's a good point, man. And that's one reason why Nirvana is like really special to me. When I was a kid, I didn't even hear really about Nirvana until like after Kurt Cobain had died. But so I was definitely late to the party in that regards. But I heard this band and I was like, oh man, they're awesome. And it was like one of the first bands, especially as a kid, that I liked a lot, and my dad did as well. And so we bonded over that. And then when I got older, even started playing some Nirvana songs together on acoustic guitar. And so I agree with you in terms of being able to have music be that connection between family members, especially when there's an age difference.
Real quick, when you were into Nirvana, was it after? So you had said after Kurt Cobain committed suicide.
Correct.
Were you aware of them when he was alive and well? Or?
No, not at all. And I also, it was
you were
kind
young,
of
right?
Well, so I was born in 88. I think he died in like 92.
92, yeah. 94.
Or was it 94?
Yeah, 94.
Okay. But I didn't start listening to him until I was like 13 or something. And it was kind of funny because especially, Smells Like Teen Spirit, even though the first time I had like kind of really recognized it, I didn't know how big of a song it was, or even how big of a band they were. I was like, oh, this is a cool guitar riff. And I thought, not that it really mattered to me, especially since I was just kind of getting into music, but I didn't, I thought I found this like cool underground old band that no one knew about. And then the more I started looking into them, I was like, oh, yeah, no, they're pretty well known. I did not find a rare gem.
That's cool.
But
man.
It still didn't matter to me. I sometimes like to, especially at that age, I was like, oh, anything that was popular, I tried to push back against. I'm like, nah, I'll listen to something else. But I really liked them. And so and I thought that they were not popular, but then I found out they were, but I still enjoyed it enough to where it didn't stop me from really getting into them.
That's cool, man. That's cool. I remember one more Nirvana thing was I was a kid, and I'm 6 years older than John, and I remember cassettes, and they had cassette singles, and I wanted to get the Smells Like Teen Spirit cassette.
Oh, interesting.
Single, and I was really into it.
I didn't know they had cassette singles.
Yeah, and I was too nervous to ask the person at Sam Goody, if anyone knows what that is.
Music store.
Music store, yeah. I was too nervous to ask if this was that song, and I actually wound up buying the Come As You Are cassette single.
Just because Smells Like Teen Spirit was too popular?
No, because I didn't know the name of the song, and I was thinking it was Come As You Are, so I was singing to myself Smells Like Teen Spirit with Come As You Are sort of lyrics, like trying to match them and convince myself.
That's
so
funny.
I brought the tape home, felt like an idiot, but knew I liked the song.
Still a good song.
Still a good song, yeah, and it gave me a story years and years later. But on the single for Smells Like Teen Spirit, there's a B-side called Even in His Youth. Great.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know
Really,
if I know that
yeah,
one.
it's a good B-side. Check that out.
Awesome, dude. Well, you got to, I guess before the quote of the week, do you want to talk about our social crap?
Yeah, the social crap, where you can find us on the social verse. I am on Twitter at FFPizzaman and on Instagram at Fantasy Football Pizzeria. And John, he is everywhere at Life Never Lost. And next week we'll be back for another show. We're getting better and better each week, trying to refine some things and just have fun. It's been so much fucking fun, and it's kind of cool not to like be so concerned with having everything be perfect and have all these things in place right away, all this shit, but just to grow, and share this with friends and, everyone else who loves them some fantasy football, pizza, Nirvana talk, you know what I mean?
It's the only place you can get it.
Yeah, the only place.
Yeah.
Only place.
Yeah, and then if you check the Fantasy Football Pizzeria Instagram, you'll be able to see pictures of pizzas that we've been doing and reviews of each week, so you can kind of get a visual to aid in this audio experience and kind of share that with us. And this quote is from Carl Jung, who I've learned a little bit more and more about, but Zach picked out this quote, and he is going to play some drums as I read it. The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest things without it. Carl Jung. See you next week, bros. And chicks. Lots of chicks.
Lots.